Hi, it's Hazel, and welcome to my channel, Hazel Anaka Design. Because I have reignited my interest in and the time spent working in art journals, altered books, glue books, I I've been looking at them more. I've been thinking about them more. I've been doing more, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to just remind myself and you that in order to maximize our time actually creating, it is best if we spend time up front preparing some of our pages. Now, and the reason I have this pile of books here is to show you that it doesn't matter whether it's an altered book, whether it is an unwanted cruise brochure, whether it is an A to Z glue book, or a repurposed photo album. The very first step in any art creation. Well, let me just add to this list. I've mentioned the types and categories of books here, but we can go one step further, excuse me, and talk about stretched canvas, about la-di-da fancy, handmade, or commercially made sketchbooks that maybe have the finest, 200, 300 pound watercolor paper in it, and everything in between. Every single time we begin creating art, we begin with a substrate. We begin with a base of some sort. And, obviously this video isn't about that per se, because we know that some people create art on on a piece of wood by carving it, on a painting on masonite or other similar type things. So if we're talking about books, and I'll just probably maybe find one or two things in each book to show you. So this is obviously an altered book where pages were removed and so on. So I'll turn to this page. Whether, in my opinion or yours, this page, this spread is complete, is a matter of opinion, is a matter of personal taste. However, it is so much more appealing to work on, if I choose to work on it, than this. Because this means, oh goodness, I've got to cover this up. I've got to gesso it. I've got to paint it. I've got to stamp. I've got to do something to it. Whereas this, the beginning is there. So, one example. In this one, you can see that I have I've done the groundwork, the legwork on some of the pages. And again, it's a heck of a lot easier to pick up where I left off there than here. Because it's like, okay, now what? And we know that some days our answers to now what come more readily, more intuitively, more easily than other days when we think, oh, brother. So, and you'll see that in some of these as examples, as I flip through them, that I have things tucked in particular places with the intention of, next time I'm there, adding those. Now, you won't have seen this because I haven't shown it before. But I had these pages that obviously came out of a Walter Foster, how-to art book. And although there isn't much of the original pages left, you can see that there's, you know, a waterfall, there's a whale coming out of the water, a little bit of pricing up there. I basically just tore these pieces into interesting color or vibrant color pieces and tried to work in conjunction with what was already there. Now, how this ends up in the end, I don't know. But it is one way to approach your background. What have we got in this one? Okay, this was a vintage minute book from the 60s. And this is my A to Z journal. So I did pencil in. I was allowing a spread per, and there are videos on me working in these other, in all of these books. So if you want to see them, the best bet is to look for that art journal. I think that's my playlist title is art journal. So, you know, look for those. Now, oh, you haven't seen this one either. Without your knowledge and or permission, I was working on this bee spread. But you can see that it's not finished. And in places, the person's handwriting, the minute taker, is still showing. Now, I don't know whether I obviously didn't leave enough to have that being a unifying factor, but it is something that could be because we know how much we love script. And I have more B words that could go in there. So that's that. Here's another altered book that I almost forgot that I even started. This would have been, I think, before that other one. I'm just keeping the dust jacket on to protect the cover, which is solid colored. You can see here that in prepping the book, this is vintage gift wrap, and here's a little bit. How big a patch did I put in there? Well, if you peeked in, you would see it's only about an inch or so. This is I guess, yeah, like from a key card at a hotel. But this is very faint paper of some sort. Here's music paper. Here are pages that were jelly printed. Here I've obviously painted the page. Now, why is this page upside down, pray tell? Oh, maybe I glued that on top of the, I don't know. Anyway, the text is upside down, and this has been stenciled in coordinating colors. Again, jelly papers, scrapbooking paper, gel paper. Honestly, I don't know where this book, I'm just as surprised as you are to see this book. Here is this very cute bag from A&W that I clearly intended to use. That's why it's pinned in here. Here, I've gessoed over something and used some of my dyed player piano paper. Here's some note paper. This was like a little snack thingamajig, like a little tiny portion cup, but very fancy. This is a bit of wallpaper. Oh, and that's actually a pocket. Here's just a digital. Here's a digital. What do I have here? Oh, some quotes to use. Here's a label. So you can see that any sort of paper or process technique can be used to prep the page. In this one, I think, oh, this was something that I started doing for Junk Journal July in 2023. As opposed to Meg, who is Meg's Journals, she typically works in really small ones, and I thought, oh, let me spread out, let me be big and expansive. So it obviously takes more effort and more time to do bigger spreads. Here you can see that I have covered the pages up. Now I'm trying to remember what this was to begin with. Oh, I've covered this. This is gift wrap as well. So I don't even remember what this book was. But you can see in this case, I've collaged a number of papers, you know, a map, a title page, book pages, you know, and then gessoed over it in preparation, because there's nothing worse than having to get to something and realizing, uh-oh, I don't have my ducks in a row. I'm not ready. Now, I remember I just added these letters, April, probably in the last week or so. This one is just security envelopes and a whole bunch of those stickers that come when somebody's trying to sell you personalized labels. Not sure what I was doing here, but this page, it's attractive enough on its own, but it's also ready to develop further. Same thing with this. Vintage paper, vintage gift wrap, origami paper, book pages. This was, I showed this not too long ago. This was just a variety of bits off a notepad, and then I added these stickers. This, I think this came off a box from the piano roll. So that paper was far too good to just throw away. So it's waiting to use. This has another more grungy feel to it. It too is ready to go. Here's somebody's takeout menu. Here are these yoga or exercise poses, I guess exercise poses on dictionary page, ready to go. Here's the French instructions for a printer. Out of a sewing book. So there's no end to, now I keep avoiding this page because this is really kind of not cohesive at all. That clearly is a wrapper from something that I thrifted for maybe $1.49, who knows. So far I have avoided these pages, but they are ready to go. Just trying to see, I can't quite read through there. This is also an altered book that I started in conjunction with, or in response to, a video that I saw Carrie the Crafter doing. And he was picking a similar book, and I know what this was. These spreads, very color driven, were my attempt to do the color combo series of videos that, is it Lou Frou Frou was doing? So you can see in this case, I have done masking tape to protect the spine, or the gutter here, from wet media. I gessoed these pages after, gluing them together. Some pages are unstarted, so I would 9.9 times out of 10, I would gravitate to this as opposed to this, unless I'm just in one of those kind of hopeless, mindless states where all I can manage to do is glue stuff down. So clearly this is old paper. I see 1952 on there. So I guess my intention was to cover this page with this. So again, that's what I mean about working now to save time later. I also do have a playlist on my channel called Saving Time in the Studio. Honestly, I don't remember what videos I put there, but clearly this is one of those tasks where, and again, I have more pages to prepare. Here, it looks like I glued some stuff down. Oh, these pages have tissue paper on them, kind of rough and textured, which is what I love there. This book is close to being finished, so I should maybe focus on that and get her done. I also have a Get Her Done playlist. And then this is the one, whoa, that I just recently did a video in. I guess you'll see that before you see this current one that I'm taping. This was a repurposed magnetic photo album. You may remember those from your youth. They were the ones with those, where are they? Where are they? Where are they? Oh, I put them aside to prep. Oh, here they are. They had those sticky, sort of sticky little plastic covers. So in the last video where I was showing this book, I was telling you about some of the challenges and the prep that had to be done there. So since we're just talking backgrounds, I will say that this was, and because this is 13 by 11, no normal sized piece of paper would fit, so there was always some patching that needed to go on. This is scrapbooking paper. This is the one that I just did in the video. Gesso, paint, I'm not sure what that is. You know, dry brushing paint. This one I did just the other day after I did that video, and it is the back side of some gift wrap. Now this side is lovely, and of course there were cut-offs, because again I had to put in a patch. So in another page that I'm not prepared to show you right now because it's a work in progress, I used the right side on that. Now I thought I had glued this down very well, but there are some obviously places that I missed and a little bubbling there. Again, it doesn't matter in a book like this. But I felt good. Oh, and on this side I did another quite neutral gift wrap, just because I want to be ready to go. And I think I showed the others there. So I took out the unprepped pages, and you know, that way I kind of know what I have ready to go. So my intention, and maybe, why did I put that away? Because I want to actually show you something today instead of just maybe recap, I'll take this one out that has this paper background, and we can do a bit of work on that. Now the other thing that I got distracted by and had to take a detour on was my stencil collection. So I have a lot of stencils, and it occurred to me that I'm missing the boat. Do I have any within reach though? I was missing the boat by not having some of those stencils near me and ready to use at a moment's notice. I think that in some sort of an organizational video, I think I probably showed you how I store my smaller stencils. With some of the bigger ones, and you can see I must have liked this one a lot because I bought it twice. That's a Dollar Tree thing. For some of them don't fit well anywhere. And this one is a Martha Stewart, and I should actually take it out of here and make this fit. So one thing I use is a giant 3-inch or 4-inch binder and plastic sleeves. I put a sheet of paper in between so that I can more clearly see what is here and what is on this side. In this case, nothing. So I have these plastic sheets in a binder. I have smaller ones hanging on that sort of cup. I think it's a jewelry stand. I have some that really don't fit anywhere and still need some attention. So that's always on the to-do list. And then in a recent organizational stencil video, I showed some of these kinds of things. So I have since cut some of these down so that they fit better. Oh, here they are. Now these tend to be, this is paper that is sort of has a glossy finish to it. Now you probably can't see anything white on white. So I had that, I cut it down so that it would fit more easily. That was on part of a huge sheet. I also cut these guys down so they fit. Now I'll probably end up, I could either punch a hole and hang them, you know, maybe clip a bunch of them together since they're similar sizes now. Or I could put them in, if they're not too wide. Of course it is. I could put some of them, perhaps, in here. So I could trim this down a hair on either side. So I think that, number one, having your stuff, and I talked about that in that organizational video, I think that having one's stuff, number one, in a place where you can find it, and in a format that you can, that is ready to go, we are far more likely to use what we have. So any of these, maybe let's pick a couple interesting ones. So this is fairly geometric, obviously. So maybe I'll pick, now this has these little burrs on each opening because there were things that got punched out of there. Okay, so I can use that. This almost, I don't know what was going on here. Clearly I've used it because there's paint on it. And that, of course, will help strengthen and extend the life of these paper stencils. And I also have this feather one. Now, I don't think that I'm necessarily using these right. They peel off this background. So I think, whoa, the idea is that, you know, you stick it down. Well, maybe we should experiment. What have we got to lose here? I guess what I'm trying to say is, as I continue to do more work in these glue books slash altered books slash art journals, expect to see a lot more of these stencils because they're a great way to create a base, but they're also a great way to, you know, do a kind of an additional layer, add some interest, make things cohesive. So all I'm going to do in this case, because I didn't bother getting any sprays or paints or anything like that, is use something that is readily available to pretty well all of us, and that would be our ink pads. And of course, these are the kinds of brushes I use. So there are a couple of options, of course. A person could use these Distress Oxides, knowing that, you know, they will move if wet. Or a person could use more permanent stuff, whoopsie, like these. And I don't know whether I'm wasting my time or not, but I do store them upside down because I think that's what scrapbookers used to be told. So yeah, and I've labeled each end, so no matter how I put it back into its little nook, I'll still have a title facing me. So maybe maybe in this case I will use these guys, and I don't let the type or brand off, and I also store these guys upside down in a drawer. I don't let the type of ink pad determine, I don't discriminate what sort of ink I'm using when I use these brushes. So I will use whatever happens to be handy. So I don't want a straight on grid, because that would be boring. Oh, I should be protecting my table in some way. Where, oh where, at the bottom of a pile is this. Now, it's just an oversized calendar page. Came off a pad. Of course, a person, however you protect your desk, whether it's parchment paper, wax paper, oversized calendar pads, brown paper, you know, opening up a shopping bag or whatever, there is value to these papers, particularly if you like the grungier look. So, you know, fear not if you go over the edge. So I just grabbed, well, let's grab another pile of these. Don't know exactly what I want. Obviously, I have not planned this in any way. Now this has a brownish tinge to it. Maybe we want quite a neutral background. So let's see how good this shadow gray might be. Do I even have a brush for shadow gray? In the beginning, when I only had a few colors, I would tie a piece of embroidery floss around the neck of the brush. Although, you know, eventually the bristles get stained and it's pretty clear what's what. But this, whoops, this might be the thing that I need. Now, I'm just going, obviously we don't have time and probably desire to go to cover the whole page and have you watch me use a brush and do this inking. So it's going to be pretty random. I will tell you too that one of the nice things about sort of using a brush or dauber system is that you know, whatever color was used last will tend to change the current color slightly. And that's always a bonus because it looks like, ooh, how did she do that? And you can see that I'm angling the stencil and I'm just kind of randomly going here and there. Now this ink pad doesn't seem particularly juicy, but again, this is only the bottom layer, so I'm not going to be concerned my pretty little head about that, because there, who knows even how much of this will even be visible. I do tend to want to keep turning my page up, you know, side to side, top to bottom, and kind of do a random but equal distribution of color throughout the picture plane. Now, again, this is subtle. I hope you're kind of able to see it. I'll pick a more vibrant color for the next stage. So you can see that that didn't take very long. However, if I was coming to this book sort of cold and hadn't prepared the page, you can see that that would become more of an issue. Just back to these feathers, I do have, obviously I have a thing about feathers because I do have a plastic stencil. That might be more, well, I did say we would try this, you know, peeling off and see if that works. So we will do that, but that'll be the third layer of stenciling. So in the meantime, let's maybe add some of those circles. Okay, I said I'd pick a brighter color this time. Another color that I keep going back and back and back to is, and I don't have many, I only have 3, 6, I have 12 of these guys. I keep liking Night Sky. So pick a blue brush. Now, let's just do it on the side and see. Maybe load a bit more color on there. Again, random. This is almost like what I do with the scrap of Punchinello that I have. Except the holes are, you know, 4 times as big. So hopefully this is a mite easier for you to see. And of course, the amount of ink that is being distributed varies in itself because, of course, the first hole you touch, presumably your brush is more loaded with pigment. But it's that plus how much pressure is a person putting on it, you know. And I think that is kind of the beauty of the effect. Better put some in the middle here. And sometimes, you know, carrying your angled stencil around the corner just kind of is a good touch as well. Oh, maybe we have a bit of a gap here. Again, you know, I'd say 3/4 of this will probably be covered. So we're not going to waste, we're not going to lose any sleep over this, that's for sure. Okay, so just to keep moving along, we'll try one of these small guys first. See what I have no idea how well this sticks and how many times you can use it. But I guess we will find out together. And if in fact this works like a hot damn, then hey, let's go with some more color. So this is mulberry. Where I don't seem to have a mulberry. That's purpley. One of these should be almost brand new. Let's pick this big guy that doesn't. Or maybe, well, no, I'll use this one. I probably was interchangeably using sort of the burgundy and the purple. Okay, very successful. Didn't move. Let's see what happens when we pick it up. Oh, it would be good, and this is bigger, obviously, than the other one. It would be better, in my humble opinion, not to have these edges, so I'll be a little more careful on the next one. Now, same feather, just change the positioning, same color, and of course I can darken it by adding more. Oh, so that's not good. But again, we're not going to worry because it will more than likely be covered. So what is also good, like with those bits, is to have a stencil go off the edge of the page. Now, of course, while the stencil is in position, I'm getting worse instead of better at not getting so... Okay, focus, woman, focus. Now, I actually just tapped it. I didn't really reload, so let's see. Still managed to go beyond on both sides. Obviously, that is making the case for using a smaller brush. Let's try be a little gentler, which of course will serve us well in terms of not damaging the stencil also. No, line around. 5th time's the charm. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, I have a few of these because they're affordable and because I like the design. I wouldn't buy it no matter how affordable it was if I didn't like it. So this one has been used prior. That's paint obviously on there. So let's continue with the color. Let's go teal this time. So, and again, you know, probably repeating myself here, but if in a month or a week or whatever, I come back to this book, to this page, I think to myself, oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. And it's just like any other art creation or writing. You know, sometimes you want to write a scathing email to somebody who's wronged you, like maybe a product complaint that you have or whatever. We're always advised to, you know, don't hit send, sleep on it, reread it in the calm of the next day, or if you've done some creative writing and maybe you think it stinks, or maybe you think it's, you know, worth the Giller Prize or the Nobel Prize for writing. Either way, sleep on it. You know, people are encouraged to let a manuscript, like a book manuscript, sit for a couple of weeks and then reread it, because then you may find that what you thought was crap is good, or what you thought was brilliant is crap. So it's best to have that cooling off period. So I would go so far as to say the same is true with art creation. And sometimes, you know, if you're in the zone and things are flowing and you know, no one is demanding anything off you, you have the time to, and see how I'm overlapping, that's going to create a different color combination there where the two colors of ink blend. And you can see I have better control. Well, 1, because I'm embarrassed that it took 5 attempts, and number 2, because this is a smaller brush, and 3, I'm taking my time. So yeah, I'm doing this today for the purpose of this video, but I'm not going to quickly finish the spread today. I'm essentially doing almost like a mask making exercise, in that I would since I have my inks out, since I have some stencils around me, I would be just doing more backgrounds. And frankly, on the first one, maybe a person's feeling a little unsure, a little tight, you know, haven't had the, the healing effect of the art kick in just yet. But I suspect by the third or fourth page of prep that there would be, that the work will become looser and on some levels better than the very first stroke or mark or whatever that a person did in an art making session. So keep that in mind, that sometimes we start out stilted and then things improve. So hang in. Okay. Oh, that's the landline. How many of you still have landline telephones? Ours almost never rings anymore, especially since we have that control on it where you have to prove you're not a robocall. And you have to, okay, what are we doing here? Maybe plum. And of course, you know, you've all stenciled. You've all seen stenciling videos before. So there's nothing earth-shattering in watching my technique, other than, you know, sometimes it takes 5 attempts. But what I'm hoping is useful to you is the whole idea, are the thoughts behind what I'm saying. I think this is this is worth the price of admission. And again, please don't tell me that I'm the last person in the world to have known this or have figured it out. Because clearly, when I used this before, I'm sure I used it right in place. Because look at that paint went onto that guy. So it's a revelation. Whoops, I've got a little kink in the stencil. Whoops, I moved the kink someplace else. Okay, so what did I say this was? Plum. So we'll use the purple brush. And I was trying to move it. What is clearly happening is the background is becoming more and more interesting, because instead of those gray rectangles, and we're kind of drab, and then the blue circles, we now have something perhaps more, we have something closer to us and something more identifiable, something more interesting perhaps. Plus we have the relationship that is created between these items. So the fuller the page gets, oh, look how beautiful that is. The fuller the page gets, I wonder how many times you can do this on something that this is this open, and but again, it's affordable. So even if, you know, eventually it dies, I can get another one. Or in my case, I have another one to fall back on. Now, the bigger these things are, obviously the that much harder they are to control. But, whoa, this guy should be, I should have a piece of maybe plastic under here to avoid, yeah, keep that little what do you call that center part of a feather? Is that the spine? There's probably a real, like a dedicated word for that. I have learned the hard way to turn, to disallow notifications during the taping of a video, which means that the phone is not going to ring and interrupt and essentially stop the video making. And it also means that if somebody were to text me or text, I guess mostly, or probably, well, I don't know about email, but text for sure, that they would see that Hazel has silenced notifications, because I know I've seen that. But yet, you know, the text does appear, but you don't get the sounds, and you don't get, I'm not sure if a text could actually interrupt video making, but why take the chance? See, I'm having trouble positioning this so I don't have parts that aren't making good contact, because then that too will affect how well I can, you know, the result I get. And again, these are pretty darn perfect. Whoops, I say that just as this little guy lifts up. But there's no, I mean, if you had a stencil that was sort of torn and battered up, it wouldn't matter. Again, I still have a little lift there. Anyway, I started to tell you about notifications. So after the last video, I think I might have I'll see, back to creating a little shadow effect. I don't know why, but I looked at my texts only to see that there was a group text from a friend of mine saying that someone that, a hockey mom that we used to know years ago when the boys played hockey together, has died. So it's sad, like we hadn't maintained contact, because honestly, I'm not very good at it. But, you know, had gotten updates periodically over the years from, you know, this friend who had been keeping in touch. And so it's a sad state of affairs always when you hear that somebody has died. And then, of course, inevitably, one of the other people in the group said, how old was she? And then you hear the answer and you think, oh, our age. And then you sort of do a little, you know, get that little sick feeling, and then count your blessings and carry on. So it's, yeah, it's one of those things. I try to have a really, and I have had loss in my family. I've lost both parents, obviously, and others. I do try to have a philosophical take on that. I know for a fact that none of us are getting out of here alive. So it is a life cycle. It is how things go. How long have we been at this? Oh, I can go a couple more minutes. Maybe I'll try this plastic stencil too. Or do I want... Is there anything so dramatically different here? Maybe I should use some of these teeny weeny ones, because these tend to be fairly big. So let's try Vibrant Fuchsia. Anyway, a person can be sad, a person can grieve, a person can think about the good times, the not so good times, but ultimately, I take, like I said, a more philosophical approach and think to myself, that is how it goes. We are not getting out of here alive. Yes, it's sad when people die early in life, because I always feel that is especially a case of lost potential. You know, particularly if somebody is, you know, I guess, well, I don't want to make it sound like only celebrities' lives matter, because of course, that's not true at all. But it's just, people who have become famous have usually become famous because of some sort of, you know, contribution to the world as we know it, whether it's music or writing or art or acting or whatever. So those, it's easy to think about. So say a Buddy Holly, for instance, or a Patsy Cline, or not my thing at all, but an Amy Winehouse, people who died far too young. We will never know what their contribution might have been. I'm kind of glad, to be honest, that I tried this stencil, because it is sort of the opposite of these filled in ones. So again, by overlapping them a bit, there's a connection is being formed. Kind of have a gap over here. And again, very good odds that much of this will be covered up. So anyway, just back to finish the thought about the dying, because of course you could, I don't want to keep you here all day looking at me stenciling. Let's maybe throw in some green while we're winding this thing up. So as sad as it is to think that, you know, somebody has lost a wife. Now this family has also lost a son earlier. You know, kind of one of those troubled situations. So I'm sure that grief and that heartache could almost kill a mother on its own. So this family is not immune to or unfamiliar with grief. And, you know, I would never attempt to minimize anyone's pain or sorrow. But I also believe to my core that grieving is it's a process, and we must go through it. And if we don't, it's bound to rear its ugly head. And if we don't come to terms with it, if we don't go through the process, we will pay a price for that at some point with our own mental health and well-being and adjustment and so on. So I believe that wholeheartedly. But I also believe that we don't want to get stuck in the grieving process. That we grieve, but we also get through it. And there's no prescribed time as to how long that should take. But we get through it and we carry on living, because we must, for the people who are left behind and for our own, you know, time on earth. So anyway, I don't know how I got into that really, but for what it's worth, that's how I approach things. I think that during COVID, when public gatherings were restricted and forbidden and whatever, even visiting people dying in a hospital bed, you know, there was a time when that wasn't even possible. And certainly after the person's death, there were restrictions at funeral homes as to how many people could gather. If a person has not gone through that process of, well, and I know not everyone uses caskets, not everyone, you know, everyone's beliefs are kind of different in that regard. Creation is the way for many. Did I say creation? I meant cremation is the way for many. And there have been studies done that if we don't acknowledge a death, and sometimes that means taking part in these very painful rituals like visitations, prayer services, funerals, internments, that it's harder, this is probably the wrong colored brush for this one, that it is harder for people to accept that the loss has even occurred. So, and I don't mean that you should become a fixture at the funeral home and never miss anybody's funeral, because I think there are people who do that. I've always felt that unless I was especially close to somebody, and as an introvert, not that close to very many people, I don't need to be there. I don't need to be that extra burden to the survivors. I don't need to be there for the donuts and the lunch afterwards. I don't need to be there as part of the peanut gallery, which is why some people seem to go to everything. So this is, you know, keep talking, I'll have this whole thing covered. Collage, I mean, what is there left to do? This whole thing is covered in feathers. And she didn't even use any tar. Honestly, isn't this looking boho-ish to you? So, anyway, that and $2 or $8 will buy you coffee. So, take it for what it's worth. It's one woman's opinion. And I think, too, that as we see what others are doing, it helps us sort out what we want done when our number is called. So if you hate the sort of the public spectacle of a really large funeral, and again, I'm talking about what I know. I don't know your belief system. I don't know other religious belief systems. So I'm talking about what I know or have seen or lived through. Then you probably say to your survivors, and for the love of God, please do not do this at the local hall. Have it in the church. That automatically is going to thin the crowd out. Make it a family only thing. Do what needs to be done and announce it later that a private funeral was held. We get to control that, but only if we talk about it. See, why didn't I do some of these the other way? having them all curve the same way. And she remembered to turn the stencil over on the 80th impression. It only works, that only works though, if we actually tell our loved ones. If we are some of those people that feel that, I'm not talking about death, it's going to make people sad, or it could mean a couple of things. It could mean that the relationship isn't as open as it should be. It could mean that we'll talk about that I am living in denial and I'm ignoring the fact that I have a diagnosis. Now, I don't, but I'm saying that could be a possible reason that people don't talk, because suddenly it's become real. It's not talking about some far off distant day in the future, or maybe I'll be the first person that doesn't die. You know, it's now become real. There is an end date in sight. Or there wasn't the will, the courage, the openness to have the discussion, and then suddenly a person dies in what is termed a sudden death. So, you know, a catastrophic stroke or heart attack, a motor vehicle accident, that sort of thing, where there is no time to talk and prep and explain your wishes. So I'm just saying, have the conversations. And if people resist, whether it's a spouse or children, talk anyway. Talk anyway, because it frees people up to express their fears, or their maybe make amends, or whatever it is that needs to be done. Anyway, enough. I hope that you are joining me, or doing it privately, but I hope you're doing it. Have a glue book, an altered book, an art journal of some sort, and you are now convinced that you should do some advanced preparation to get your pages ready for use, for when you decide to work on them. This side is less intimidating now than this side. See, I got some smudges on here, probably from my dirty fingers. Now, how this turns out in the end, who knows? We'll wait and see. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. And I hope that, you know, I didn't step over any imaginary line by talking about a verboten subject like death. But honestly, unless you can tell me that you know someone who's escaped it, to me, to my way of thinking, it just makes sense that we talk about the hard things in life. We talk about discrimination. We talk about, you know, some of the atrocities that have happened through history, that we get our heads out of the sand and just talk. That's what's going to connect us in the end. Not pretending that things don't exist or haven't happened. Anyway, let me stop there before I continue to dig myself into a deeper hole. I hope that you try this, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye.